around, my fair knights, as I tell you a story about the very first night of Boreas, and the north wind that blows at his back. Huh? It's just a theory and I have no proof for my bardic tales? Okay, fine. Stick around afterwards and I'll break the analysis down for you too. How's that sound? Disclaimer. No leaks are referenced in this video, so please don't bring them into the comments. This theory on Varka's lore and identity will be a bit experimental. I thought it would be fitting to frame the theory through the lens of a story. If that's not your speed, your luck. The second half will feature a more normal breakdown of all the readings that allowed me to arrive at these conclusions. Timestamps will be in the description. Once upon a time, over 6,000 years ago, the first angel known as Koitar instructed the artisans of Hyperborea on how to create Fae spirits, using methods forbidden by the heavenly principles. Forged upon the bones of giant beasts in the legendary City of Gold, Koitar hoped that these creatures would one day go on to create a perfect being capable of merging with the world. On one fateful day, the flames of war were ignited anew. Down the Golden City fell, perishing under the might of a celestial nail, with many Fae spirits withering away into icy mist. And cast aside was Koitar by her own creator, stripped of her name and form. In the ruins of the Hall of the Angels at Amsvartnir, she sang a song of the ceiling, mourning a lost life she would never remember again. At some point in the future, one of her children came by, a Fae in the form of a wolf. This particular wolf was once a king of its kind, but after many long years of a fruitless hunt for home, he had lost much of his pack and grew wary. This Fae was one known as a Varcolac. He had two hearts within him, one human and one wolf. Though he met the fallen angel Koitar in the form of a wolf, his human heart was still a part of him, buried deep inside. In fact, it just so happened that at the time of this meeting, a guard with an old Mondstadt was experiencing his first drunken dream, where he met the first Seelie in the form of a wolf. With her, the wolf sat, no longer capable of human speech. Though she did not recognize him, she sang to him, patted his fur, and even named him Boreas, after the north wind. As luck would have it, or perhaps it was a stroke of fate, days later after receiving his name, this Fae was miraculously able to speak. He called Koitar his mother, and then he said, "I will go to the south, where the people are poor and lowly, yet the cities are large and fortified. I will make them prosperous." This fortified city he mentioned was Old Mondstadt, the city of Barbados. Boreas departed Amsvartnir, taking with him his remaining kin. Upon arriving at the prison-like city, then controlled by Decorabian, the Wolf King separated from his human heart, unwilling to enter. Despite their physical parting, the two hearts remained tethered to each other, and the wolf and the knight were still one and the same. When Decorabian finally fell, his great tower crumbling, and the walls of the prison-like city shattering, the wolf heart of Boreas also perished in battle. In the newly freed Mondstadt did his ancient spirit stay, forever watching over his human half. Over the years, fragments of Boreas, both human and wolf in nature, would meet Koitar and Amsvartnir again and again, and return to the City of Freedom to fight together once more. But they could not recall their shared past, as those memories were lost to the wind. Eventually, one such fragment would join the Knights of Favonius as the Knight of Boreas. And eventually, one fragment would be known as Varka. So, there you have it. I believe Varka is a fragment of the Wolf King Boreas, also known as Andreas. I also think there have been multiple human fragments of Boreas involved in Mondstadt's history over the years, and that the story of the wolf meeting Koitar is cyclical. None of these fragments have any memories of the past, and so Varka's mission next patch will probably involve uncovering the memories he's missing. Before I jump into my evidence, I'm going to put a list of all the sources I'm using in this video on your screen right now. First, I'll talk a bit about a new Fae type we learned about this patch, the Varcolac. Then, I'll dive into the lore from A Drunkard's Tale. connecting it to Boreas and the mural at Amsvartnir to solidify the evidence that Boreas might be a Fae capable of living both as a human and a wolf. And finally, we'll link all of that back to Varka. There were two very interesting books released during Luna 4. As we know, fairy tales and works of fiction within Teyvat can serve as a method of preserving information against Irminsul erasures. Granted, this doesn't mean that every book was written with these intentions. However, I do think it indicates that we can pick up on future lore foreshadowing in each new book we receive. At the end of the day, these books are not random flavor texts written by the devs with no purpose. They exist as a vehicle of information for the player, regardless of how that information may be framed. For example, A Brief History of the Pale Starborn is a heavily annotated book detailing the history of how the Tsar gained the favor of the Snowland Fae, dating all the way back to the Archon War. We're heading to Snezhnaya next, so we can clearly see how this information would be relevant. And for the sake of this theory, the most important thing to note is the existence of a Fae clan with wolf-like features. There's a pretty good chance that Boreas belonged to one such clan at some point in time. So then, what can we learn from this book, Night Murmurs from the Far Border? It is your classic gothic work of fiction depicting a story between a human hunter and a wolven fae. In the cold, dark night, the hunter shoots the wolf in the back with an arrow, and the wolf gets away. He follows the blood trail to a hidden mansion in the woods, where he meets a handsome young man who treats him to dinner. He even invites him to stay the night. Later that night, unable to sleep and sensing that something was off about this house and that young man, the hunter trails him and finds that he has a wound in the same place as the wolf he shot. The hunter and the man end up fighting, with the hunter stabbing the man straight through the heart. This does not kill him, however, for the wolf he was hunting then wakes up. We Varcolac are born with two hearts. Thank you for piercing through that extraneous heart for me. Now, I am finally complete, says the monstrous wolf, mere seconds before the hunter meets his own demise. It's quite interesting that Hoyoverse decided to add this book in the patch directly before Varka's release. The way this Fae is presented suggests that the two hearts, that of the human and the wolf, almost belong to separate beings entirely, despite the fact that they are in one entity. The wolf called the human heart extraneous and was even happy that it died. It seems like it's implied there's some separation between the human and the monster inside. When we look at the human side of the Fae, this is even more apparent. During their fight, the Fae was clearly besting the hunter in terms of physical strength, and so to catch him off guard, the hunter yelled the accusation that he was a monster. And the Fae actually hesitated in response to that accusation, indicating he lacked the same bloodlust that his wolf side clearly had. And it was this hesitation that led to the death of his human side. Now, who do we know that's releasing soon who is a human and is heavily associated with a supernatural wolf? Varka, the current knight of Boreas, and his best friend Boreas. The parallels are apparent, so keep this Fae type in mind as we go through the rest of this theory. Alright, Lia, but when have Varka and Boreas ever been implied to be one and the same? For all we know, Varka simply has the title of the Knight of Boreas, and Boreas was an ancient god, not a Fae. I'm so glad you asked. A Drunkard's Tale was a book released on launch. It has been 5.5 years since 1.0, and so this lore has been planned out by the devs for a very long time. The story of A Drunkard's Tale is as such. A drunken man stumbles into the forests of Mondstadt and comes face to face with the lone wolf who nearly kills him. It is not clear at what point in time this interaction takes place. However, we can gather it must have been a long time after the Archon War, as there are mentions of nobles, such as during the aristocracy, and the snow across Mondstadt that existed prior to Decorabian's fall has been melted for hundreds of years. The drunk and the wolf each take turns telling a story to one another. What they would discover is that their stories unexpectedly connect. Starting with the drunken man, He recounts a dream from an unknown time where he roamed a wasteland in the form of a weary lone wolf king. Sound familiar? He discovered the ruins of a long-forgotten palace, where he then met a fair maiden who sang a song of the ceiling. The wolf claimed to have also known that song, saying it belonged to his kind too, and then they sang it together. Well, we now know that the wastelands mentioned in A Drunkard's Tale is in fact Nordkrai. The palace's location is Amsvartnir, and the ceiling in question is in fact Koitar, the first angel. This is confirmed not only by the world quests at Amsvartnir, but also the Luna 1 event weapon Aetherlight Spindeloot. What's curious is if we read the dialogue by the mural at Amsvartnir, we learn that the wolf who came by to meet Koitar was given the name Boreas, after the north wind. Additionally, Boreas called Koitar Mother. The artifact set finale of the Deep Galleries sets a solid date for the birth of the Snowland Fae. Over 6,000 years ago, in Hyperborea, before the Funerary War left the Golden City destroyed. We also know that the artisans who created the Fae were taught these quote-unquote forbidden methods by Koitar herself, who is pictured in the mural at Amsvartnir. Recalling that the Wolf Fae clan still exists in Snezhnaya to this day, and that this wolf in particular claimed the Song of the Angels as belonging to the wolves, which is in ancient Greek by the way, the language of the Fae in Genshin, we start to see how Boreas, the Wolf King, the god of the North Wind, was possibly once a Fae from Hyperborea. After all, the mother to the Snowland Fae would, indeed, be Koitar. So now we have laid the groundwork for Boreas himself originally being a Fae. The final piece of the puzzle is how exactly Varka links up with Boreas. Continuing through A Drunkard's Tale, the wolf tells the drunken man about another drunken man, this one dating all the way back to the Archon War. There are blizzards raging outside the city walls, which we know were caused by Boreas himself at his full strength. This drunk in particular was said to be the very first drunk Mondstadt ever had, and it just so happens that in his first drunken dream, he dreamt that he had become a lone wolf. The very same lone wolf that stumbled upon Koitar in Amsvartnir. We now know that wolf is Boreas, but these two humans belong to different time periods, and yet they had the same dream. So strange. There are a few choice lines that start to blur the identity between man and wolf, as if they were the same entity, despite having their own lives. Like a Varcolac, as described earlier, which is a Fae with a wolven heart and a human heart. The tribe-dwelling human and the pack-dwelling wolf could not bear to live in solitude. This newly brewed wine served to bring man and wolf together in their dreams. What concerned the wolf even more was that when in a drunken human dream, it could no longer distinguish whether it was a wolf or a human with a wolven spirit. Somehow, alcohol is what ends up joining Boreas together with these two men. Varka is definitely known to drink, but there is still one more question to answer. If Varka and Boreas are two halves to a whole Varcolac, then why are they separated? The events of Wolf's Gravestone are implied to take place around the time of Vanessa's rebellion. The fact there are forests signals the blizzards are gone, and the first known Knight of Boreas was implied to be Ravenwood. But I am of the interpretation that there have been multiple humans in history who have had a special relationship with the North Wind. Even if this story is about the Knight of Boreas from Vanessa's time, there is still something we could learn about the Drunkard from the time of the Archon War, and maybe even about Varka himself. Let's go through the weapon description line by line. The Knight of Boreas' journey ended at the city of Barbados. Wandering souls attract each other, boundless freedom begets only anxiety. Upon entering the city, the Knight of Boreas' companion bade him farewell in silence, for the free-spirited wolf resented the stone walls and lamplight, and yearned for the open wilds. The Knight of Boreas traveled to Mondstadt from somewhere else, along with his wolf companion. They separated when they reached Mondstadt. When combining this information with both A Drunkard's Tale and the mural at Amsvartnir, we know it is a human dreaming of being Boreas, the lone wolf king, traveling to Mondstadt from Nordkrai. The Knight of Boreas' heart remained free, though his flesh was inside the prison-like city. Meanwhile, the wind-born wolf roamed the forest in the flesh, while his heart remained loyal to the knight. The Knight of Boreas rode again to hunt. The wolf followed his scent into battle. Still one were they, the wolf and the knight. And again, the lines are blurred between the wolf and the human. Even though they parted ways physically, they still shared a connection. When considering the nature of that connection, how both the human and wolf in A Drunkard's Tale had moments where they could not separate their identity from one another, this might not be a simple metaphor. If we take this literally, it points to Boreas being a Varcolac, a fae with two hearts, wolf and human. Though one they were, death comes for beasts sooner than men. Laying down his sword as a gravestone, the Knight of Boreas buried the wolf in the remote countryside. The Knight of Boreas then left the city behind, living instead the wandering life of a lone wolf. Yet the eternal wolf spirit remained here, watching over the land the knight once protected. Now, where have we seen a sword buried in the countryside hosting an ancient wolven spirit? Our first weekly boss fight against Boreas. It is not just some random wolf, but the Wolf King himself, the same one who sacrificed himself after Decorabian fell so that Venti could ascend to Celestia. The story almost seems to follow the events of the mural directly. The guard from Old Mondstadt who dreamt of meeting Koitar's Boreas. Boreas declaring to Koitar he would depart to the south, to Mondstadt's fortified city, to support those poor and lowly. But the wolf who approached Koitar was described to be battle-worn, a previous wolf king who had lost much of his strength. And so, this makes me wonder, what if all of this is a cyclical tale? There are two humans in A Drunkard's Tale who dreamt of being the wolf who met Koitar. Then we have the blood-stained knight, i.e. Roland from 500 years ago, who also happened to leave a sword with the wolf guarding it near Amsvartnir. Next patch, we will need Varka and our team to interact with these swords, where we will go on to face fragments of Boreas in battle. If you approach these swords now, it says it is waiting for the presence of Boreas, which will evidently be a part of Varka. To me it seems that, every couple hundred years, a fragment of the North Wind meets the equally fragmented Koitar in the form of a wolf, with neither of them remembering their past meetings. And then that fragment travels to Mondstadt to help out, where it separates into a human and a wolf. Perhaps in each of these cases, at the end of that fragment's journey, they leave a sword behind for the greater Boreas Northwind Collective to come gather the fallen souls and their lost memories. I wonder who left this sword then, if not Roland or the first Knight of Boreas from Vanessa's time. What if it was the original human heart of the Fae from Hyperborea? One important piece of information from Night Murmurs from the Far Border I neglected to mention earlier is that no matter which form this Fae takes on, human or wolf, the Varcolac's fur will retain the same color. In the case of the young nobleman, his hair was jet black, the same color as the wolf's fur. Roland and Varka have the exact same hair color. We also don't know how Boreas appeared before he gave up his physical body, as he has returned in the form of literal ice and wind. Boreas and Flins share visual similarities despite their 5-year-long release time gap. Did you know Boreas has wings? Not only in the literal sense, but also these blue, wispy flame-like things that look like the fire in Flynn's lantern? Not to mention that Flins has said the blue flame was not known to give off heat, meaning it's probably cold. Boreas may be considered a god more so than Flins because he has retained more of his past memories and strength, even in his own death. Meanwhile, Flynn's current memories only go back about 600 to 700 years, if he's telling the truth and not pulling a Gallagher on 13. And lastly, speaking of Flynn's, we all remember how he immediately clocked that Columbina was the mysterious helper the second they met. And before even she knew herself, he didn't seem to trust her rejection of that idea at the moment either. This is the same guy who was assigning MBTIs to everyone in Nordkai based on a personality quiz he put together. The same guy who claims to learn the names of ghosts by his flame touching them and gaining some of their memories. The same guy who collects old gemstones and relics, somehow able to discern their stories better than the auctioneers can. The same guy who could tell Durin had the power of the abyss within him. You get it. He seems to have a scarily accurate sixth sense for certain things. Have you heard his voice line about Varka? He quite literally likens Varka to the North Wind itself. And remember what he said in Luna 5's trailer?
Remnant fragments of an ancient god, thoughts stored inside a blade. I suspect there is more to Mr. Varka's plan than what he's revealed to us so far.
Yeah,